Good morning, everyone. Good morning, at least here in beautiful BC. I guess it's afternoon for everybody east of BC. So welcome today to today's webinar. Welcome to our 2020 virtual symposium presentation today. We're excited to learn more about youth involvement interest in sustainable communities. Before we begin our webinar today, we'd like to thank all of our Community Bloom sponsors and partners for their contribution towards our 2020 special edition. Their support and the support of our registered communities is truly appreciated. In fact, we wouldn't be doing this without them. Today's webinar is graciously sponsored by Equinox. Thank you so much to Equinox for their support of our program this year. And we have a short video to share today with a message on behalf of our sponsor. Thanks again to Equinox, our sponsor of today's webinar. Before I introduce today's first speaker, just a little bit of housekeeping. We like to have questions available for the speakers afterwards. So use the Q&A feature for asking your questions. You can enter them at any time through the presentation, and then afterwards we'll collate them and make sure we can answer as many as possible. You can find the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, just hover over the bottom of your Zoom screen a little bit and it will pop up again. Now I'd like to introduce and welcome Scott Wentworth. In addition to leading Wentworth Landscapes since its inception 30 years ago, Scott is also founding member of Come Alive Outside and serves as chair of Come Alive Outside Canada. The Come Alive Outside Design Challenges engages elementary, secondary, and landscape design students to design and build outdoor learning spaces within their school grounds. This program builds student awareness and engagement in how we can design nature back into our lives. Scott also sits on the National Board of Directors of Communities in Bloom and designs feature planting areas for the Highway of Heroes. Welcome, Scott. It's all yours.
There we go. Thank you, Bill. Pleasure to be here and welcome to everybody. Wonderful day to be here. Here we go. So I'd like to talk this morning about Come Alive Outside and the programs that we have that we really use to engage youth and families in community work, really to live healthier lives outside. We do this with a multiple series of ways, but I love to start with this little exercise here. So bear with me. I want you to just give some thought. Sitting there in your office or your home, or maybe on your back patio would be the best place to be looking at this kind of a program. But what is your favorite memory of your childhood or memories? Just give that a brief bit of thought here. Your favorite memories of your childhood. And I think if you think back to that, when I asked this question, I started all my presentations with it. And I think to a person through many years, I'm betting that has something to do with being outside with family, with friends, exploring nature, even if that nature is the park down the street or the backyard. It really is something that being outside and connecting with nature is very intuitive for all of us and is really part of our childhood experience. And there ends up with the sedentary lifestyles that we live now, a bit of a disconnect with this. But when we think of that, we think of why does it feel so great to be outside? Why is it that those memories are built around that? And I think we can look back and think it's the sensory experience we have. We can go back and we can reach back to some of those memories and think that you can smell what the forest smelt like when you were going on a walk. One of my favorite childhood memories in growing up in London, Ontario, was a group of us as kids would ride our bikes around everywhere. And we'd ride out in the country, and at this time of year, you'd be riding out in a country lane filled with orchards on both sides, and you could smell the apples on the trees. So it's all the sensory awareness of what we smell, what we see with colors, and the light play on things, and all these things that really grab us to feel so good about being outside. So why do we want to reach out and get youth engaged more in sustainable communities, or the environment, or community health and wellness? And I think all these three things are the key. So let me just back up here. The key social issues that we're facing now for all of us, not just youth, but I think youth have a growing awareness of these things. So we have community health and wellness. If the script weren't prepared to be any more aware right now for all of us, I don't know what could be for where it is right now. Environmental restoration. And certainly environmentalists like Greta Thunberg has done a great deal. We look back, it was about a year ago now that we had all these student protests that numbered in the hundreds of thousands or even in the millions of people, of students being aware of the need for environmental restoration and the lack of action that's being taken on it. And then sustainable lifestyle practices. We think back now to the generation that really brought us recycling as students. Were the ones that in school were taught the 3 R's of reuse, reuse, and recycle, and taught that to their parents. And now that's really fully ingrained in our society. But now we're looking at things far beyond that, those simple things and the need for it. So we have these three key things, I think, to build community engagement around. I think as well, looking at the why, there's some really important health statistics to be looking at. So if we look at the current state, and these statistics were pre-COVID, and no doubt they would be much higher than they would, not only for kids, but for adults as well. So we're really looking at statistics like 7.5 hours per day Canadian kids spend in front of screens, whether that's a phone, an iPad, a computer, a television. And I would challenge that's low at this point now. 54% of Canadian adults who are overweight.
Hey, Scott.
We look at.
Can you move into presentation mode? It'll just make your slides a little bit bigger on the screen.
You got it there?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
So we see that 31% of Canadian youth are overweight and have issues in that way, largely pertaining to sedentary lifestyles. Half the time is spent outdoors compared to 1980. And 9% of youth who get the recommended daily activity. In fact, Participation's report card came out not too long ago, and stunningly, that number has dropped to 3%. Just something that's really eye-opening. And I think all of this centers around a disconnect with nature. You know, we're revolved around this device, or these devices that have been the most compelling thing that's really ever been invented, and really demands our attention to it quite intentionally. So we have kids inside looking at their devices in this way. Those aren't the childhood memories that we have. And those aren't the childhood memories, you know. If I ask this question in 20 years, I don't want those childhood memories to be, yeah, we're sitting down in the basement playing video games or whatever that might be. And this is really the most important one, that when we look at the current state of this report that came out from the New England Journal of Medicine, that for the first time in 2 centuries, the current generation of children in North America may have shorter life expectancies than their parents. And this study was looking at this shortening of lifespans by being as much as 5 years related to health issues connected with the sedentary lifestyle that we live right now. So when we moved from the why, Come Alive Outside was really born out of this as a movement that was reached out to the landscape profession, the green industry, and has more recently moved into preventative health issues in organizations. So the mission statement of Come Alive Outside is to inspire collaborative community systems that create the awareness, intention, and opportunity for people to live healthier lives outside. And this is really done through 5 core principles to it. The first is get active outside, you know, no matter what that might be. And sometimes in the lockdown that we've had, just getting into the backyard to get a breath of fresh air is enough to recharge us. Grow something you can eat. You know, we see a lot more activity this in school programs now, and the connection that young people have in learning that food chain, and just the reward that they see in gardening is something that really connects them to nature in that way. Connecting in nature. And again, this could be being in the park, it can be going for a walk in the woods, it can be just observing the world around you, listening to the birds as they're migrating at this time of year. You know, getting down on your hands and knees and watching the bees going from flower to flower, or butterflies, or whatever it might be, really connecting with it that way. And the real core reason for this is, this generation has a greater academic knowledge of the environment than any generation before it, but they have the least amount of firsthand experience with it. And it's a truth. It's real that you protect what you have firsthand knowledge of. And we need this generation to lead us, to be the champions in environmental restoration and in sustainability. And without that firsthand knowledge of it, it's not going to happen the way it could if we get them engaged in this way. So very important. Learn with your hands in the soil. You know, kids need to get out there and get dirty and be exploring in the wild or in the garden. And there's so much that really connects kids and adults, and even through intergenerational families, in doing exactly that. And lastly, to play unplugged. The movement of natural playgrounds and such is one expression of this, but just letting kids be outside and enjoy the outdoors and explore, and not be on their devices to be stimulated in that way. So what is the programming that Come Alive Outside has moved around? And we have several of these on a community basis, and then we have some other programs that run a little differently. The first of the community programs was what we call the Green Street Challenge, and that started here in Picton, Ontario, 10 years ago. It would have been our 10th event this year, but canceled that for obvious reasons. But what we do is, on Canada Day here in Picton, we saw about 8,000 square feet of Main Street. So right down the main street where the stores are, and it's really become the focal point of Canada Day activities. And this is a bit of a picture of it. It's the focus of it, and it's unique. We have families come out and spend hours and hours on it. And what we do is we put out play equipment. We put out things like this parachute here and games, but we keep it unstructured. Because I think there's also a very great need that we have in our youth right now to encourage unstructured play. Parks shouldn't just be used for scheduled baseball games or soccer games or whatever. They need green spaces to just get out there, socialize, learn those skills that come with that, and use their imagination. And it's been a wonderful tool for doing that. The sod afterwards is repurposed. We've done various things with it, Habitat for Humanity, clients that might be battling cancer and their properties have let go, those kind of things. So in all the events that have been held on this, it's been something that's been repurposed for it as well. So last year, I believe there were 16 communities in Ontario, in the States. Calgary had one, Woodstock, Huntsville, Hamilton, this is Rutland, Vermont, an event down there. And what's the beautiful thing of this is that each community puts their own spin on it. So something that's important to them. Often it's connected with some other kind of street closing event that might be some kind of significant community event, and then this just adds to it. And in fact, in multiple events, it usually becomes the focal point of what those activities are. Here we have an exercise class happening out there, teaching kids to bicycle more safely with the police department. Street dance happening with it all as well. Just a multitude of events that you can think of. The City of Toronto has held it at the corner of Yonge and Bloor, the busiest intersection in Canada, for several years, and they do it twice a year. And we've had probably 5,000 to 8,000 people out over the course of a 6-hour event. And Toronto has done a great job of using it as an educational component as well, to really teach about the environment and sustainability and more healthy living with it as well. So great with that. Another event that we've been doing now for 8 years is the Come Alive Outside Design Challenge. And this is just a magical way of getting youth engaged in what becomes a design charrette for landscape design students, ultimately leading to working with the students and the faculty at a school, and then creating an outdoor living area or an outdoor play area in their classroom. So we're going to be doing so in a couple of weeks in a online version of it. We'll see how that works. But when you see these series of slides here, look at the level of engagement of the kids in this here. It's just remarkable to see how they just are all in on it. Often the schools will do some preparation work for it in asking them the question to start thinking about what are the kind of things that they would like to see in their playground and reconnected with nature, or the tagline of designing nature back into our lives again. So with that, we have landscape design students engaging with the students. Often it's a high capacity or a high number of grade 3 students, because grade 3 students have no constraints on their imagination. It's just unbelievable things they'll come up with. And we always try to incorporate, however unrealistic some of those things might be, we still want to try to incorporate some of those elements into the design. The landscape design students then go away, and they're often working in groups, and we've been doing this in the past, of having students from the various colleges or universities working together in teams and coming up with a design that the following day they present in an open house format. The students, as they were doing this, you can see this girl, she was almost writing with both hands, just scribbling. She couldn't go through enough pages of paper to convey her ideas of what she wanted to see in the playground through here. So then this open house format, the students have created some concept plans, and then the students, their parents, the faculty, the community comes out, and we have a very engaging community process here that everyone's given stickers, and they can put a sticker on what their favorite design is or elements within it as well, that then can be reviewed together to see, inform what the final design might be. The college and university students then go back, and this is part of their curriculum, and they work on refining a design that's then judged. And at the Landscape Ontario Awards of Excellence, the winning team is awarded in the midst of the Awards of Excellence. And it's to see these landscape design students when their school is called, it's like, you know, the winner of the Best Picture at the Academy Awards. It's just wonderful to see the pride that they have, and a great benefit to the program of the landscape design colleges and universities for it as well. And then at least a portion of this gets built out into the school ground in the following year. And what a wonderful way for students to see there's something that they've been engaged in from the very start, and something that they're living with. And vandalism is very low on these things because they were part of the process. They were part of developing this from the very beginning. So great program there. Other ones that Come Alive Outside runs are, again, this varies on the community that you're in. This is in Vermont. They created a trail in the woods. This is called Pinecone Trail. And you can see that they had a community program with kids and families to come up with different features that were going to be set within it, came up with signage with it, and then the families helped in building out what these would be along the trail. So a special place for kids to go outside and enjoy outdoors with it that way. This is tied into Come Alive Outside Passport program. Very easy thing to implement within your community, and it has different pages that show different activities. And when you go out to a park, there'll be a Come Alive Outside number there, and you write that down in your passport. It might be community events, it might be sowing seeds on a farm for pumpkins and squash that you then go out and harvest at this time of year. All these different activities that you fill the passport seasonally, turn it back in, and then there's things like Come Alive Outside hats and sunglasses and that kind of thing. And it really is a great way of directing kids to get outside and families outside as well. So here's some of the activities, just getting started and cleaning up an area. Different kind of walking programs. We're going to be launching next spring the 2K a day program. Instead of 100 miles in 100 days, we'll do a 2K a day. And it's been a great program in addressing preventative health needs. 2 kilometers isn't far to walk, even if someone's leading a very inactive lifestyle or recovering and needs some physical activity to get back. Even doing 1, but it builds a program around getting outside, getting out active, and you get that connections with it that way. Here the students are sowing out in community gardens in the springtime and then harvesting pumpkins and squash afterwards. Winter passports as well. We live in a climate here. Don't think too many people are going to be heading south this winter, so we need to find ways to get our communities to embrace being outside and getting active. So you can have things like build a snowman and send your picture in. I've never seen a snowman look so much like the kid who built it as this one does. I love this picture here. And then the Park RX program is often run through community programs, and health units will often work with health practitioners, and they actually prescribe spending time outdoors for the benefits of it. Some of the quantitative results of these programs are really remarkable. 94% reported increased levels of physical activity with these programs, 60% increase in frequency and duration of physical activity, and a positive impact on mental well-being that went along with it as well. So great positive impacts of connecting youth and family in these ways. And that's the kind of energy that we want to see brought to our kids and our families with these kind of programs. Leave it back to you, Bill.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Scott. That's a wonderful presentation. We haven't got any questions from the Q&A yet, but I worked up a few for you, so we'll wait until afterwards to do that.
Don't make them too tough.
No, they won't be. Next up, we have Isaac Crosby joining us. Isaac is also known as Brother Nature or B Nature. He comes from the unceded farmland about 30 minutes south of Windsor, Ontario, called Harrow, Ontario. His First Nation community harbored fugitive slaves in the mid-1800s, and he is proud of his Ojibwa Black Canadian heritage and looks forward to sharing some of their histories. Even though he's been farming since birth, he also studied landscape horticulture technology at Humber College. He has gardened around the world, and he is currently the urban agriculture lead hand at Evergreen Brickworks. Teaching everyone how to farm is ideal, but his goal is especially to inspire and educate youth on farming, either in the city or rural settings. He incorporates his education and his traditional First Nations farming to grow great crops, to teach others, and to do his own part in saving the earth. Thank you, Isaac, for joining us. It's all yours.
Thank you, everyone, for inviting me down to speak about what I do at Evergreen Brickworks. So I'll give a brief view of who I am. All right. So the first picture is a picture of my garden, but we'll go to who I am. As you know, my name is Isaac Crosby, also known as Brother Nature or B Nature. I come from southwestern Ontario. I am Ojibwa and Black mix. I come from a long line of Indigenous farmers and fugitive slave farmers. I enjoy and love what I do, and I love to pass it on to other people. So what I do when I'm at Evergreen Brickworks, there we go. At Evergreen Brickworks, I am the youth mentor, I'm the urban agricultural lead hand, I'm a tour guide, and I turn spaces into places. The first one, the youth mentor, I am the really the indigenous youth mentors. Have a lot of indigenous youth who come to me and want to learn about traditional ways of gardening, going back to the culture, and find different ways of using the land instead of using chemicals or using any kind of machines. So at Brickworks, when I meet the youth, I always make sure I sit down and we have a nice informative session. I need to see where they are in this whole process, because the whole goal for me is to get them to teach me what they want to do, and get them to actually get their hands dirty and be inside the soil and be with the earth. And what I found is that a lot of youth, especially youth who are like from 15, 16, they are not too keen on being outside. Like you said, heard earlier, they love being on their laptops or their cell phones. So when they come to me, my first thing is, we'll put the cell phones away, or I'll give you 5 minutes every 2 hours on your cell phone, but I need you to come in and be with the earth. So you can know what I do. So when we're done with all this programming, you can go forth and teach it to other people. When it comes to the agricultural lead hand, urban agricultural lead hand, I do that with a lot of non-Indigenous youth and a lot of schools that come down that want to learn about Indigenous agricultural techniques. So when they come down, I do the same thing. We have a nice hour talking about what they would like to learn, and then I will get them out into the earth, out into the field, out into the garden to learn and to actually have hands-on with the earth and with what I'm teaching them. The tour guide for me is I tour all the gardens on site at Evergreen Brickworks. If you ever get a chance to come down there, please come down and see these gardens and just be at the space. Because my tour guide, as being a tour guide, you'll see that I turn spaces into places, which is quite fun at Brickworks. When I first started there about 4 years ago, there's that one space that was looking kind of off, and they asked me to take it over, and I said, well, sure, as long as I get autonomy over the garden. Whoops, too fast. Bring it back down. Okay, who do I do it with? All right, so you see, I work with the TDSB, I work with the Indigenous Youth, the Native Center of Toronto, I have the Native Learning Centers in Toronto, Wandering Spirit School, TDSB, and City of Toronto. Each one of these partners, I call them, have certain things they'd like to learn from me and learn from Evergreen Brickworks. When it comes to the First Nations and working with the Native Center and Native Learning Centers, it's mostly about learning cultural techniques, agricultural techniques. So with me, it's they come down, I'll show them how to take care of the pole beans. I'll show them how to plant the Three Sisters gardens. I'll show them that there's more than just Three Sisters, there's 2 other ways of doing it as well. We even talk about clay pot irrigation as well. So I try to keep it as traditional as I can. Sometimes we go non-traditional. We look at tractors and stuff like that, the machines, because we're in a day and age where we actually use those as well. But I do my best to keep it as traditional, because I want the children to learn, the youth, to learn how to do it with their hands first before they decide to go to tractors. All right. When I do it with the TDSB and the City of Toronto, that is more with non-Indigenous youth who want to learn about Indigenous agricultural techniques, or maybe their teachers want to learn as well. So they will come down and we will go through all the gardens. We'll go through history lessons, look at the fruit. One thing I love to do with all the students is we go through all the harvested food and we make a meal. So by creating a meal with them, it teaches them more about the Indigenous foods and how to cultivate them, how to eat them, and how to grow them. So right here, you'll see some of the Indigenous youth that I mentored this summer. These ones are from NDG. They're Indigenous youth from all across the City of Toronto, and they spend 8 weeks with me in the gardens and hiking. At first, I will tell you this, when I first met these youth, they looked kind of scared. I mean, mind you, it's part of COVID as well. And so they're like, oh, what did they get themselves into? But after talking to them for a while, they really started to warm up and started really getting involved within Evergreen Brickworks and with the programming. And then by the second time I saw them, and ever since after that, every time they'd come on site, these youth came alive. They'd get out of their parents' cars, I'll see them walking through the forest, taking a trail. And the minute they come on site, they come alive. Like, wow, this really brings me up. I said, good. This is what I need from you. This is what nature does. This is what being outside does to you. It gives you full of energy. When you sit inside the house, it doesn't do anything for you. So come outside. Come be outside in the garden. And you're down here to learn, so let's learn. And these youth spent the whole, I mean, not just with me, they spent time with landscape architects from the University of Toronto and helped develop and build some designs. And right here, you see that we have the youth in the skeleton of the teepee. And this is one day where I was teaching them about beekeeping and how to take care of bees. It was very, very fun to watch these kids, these youth, I should say, not kids, these youth, get around the bees, and some would stand still and some would just run. And I was like, all right, I get it, but I want them to learn how to be calm. Be calm where you are. And trust me, the bees they won't bother you because they know you're busy doing your own thing and they're busy doing what they have to do, which is collect pollen, make honey. So we can have something sweet, and we have some beeswax as well. Not only do I allow the youth to be on site and we work in the gardens, we also do a lot of hikes. And we collect medicine. So this right here is the youth at the medicine garden that we have on site. So the medicine garden, we grow tobacco, we grow sweetgrass, we grow white sage, and we have cedar. All of these we use in a smudge mix, and all of these we'll use, especially the tobacco, to gift any elders that come down and do any teachings on site. The indigenous youth they were surprised that I had a medicine garden on site. I told them, I actually have 4 of them. They're for this purpose, for that when people come down, especially people from the First Nations community, and they're looking for the medicines, they can come down here and pick. But I really want the youth to come down. So the youth told me that they end up buying the medicines. Like, no, come down here and pick. This as long as you do an energy exchange. So here you see the youth. The youth they are inside the garden picking sweetgrass. They're learning how to braid it, and then teaching about the sweetgrass history and how to braid it properly, and how to gift it to somebody. Here you see one of our trips was to go to the river. If I can get it correctly, there we go. There we go. So going to the river was another thing these youth wanted to do. I said, that's fine, let's do it. Because river water is all a part of gardening. We need water in our garden. We need to make sure that our garden is taken care of. I don't know why he's falling with that, but that's okay, as long as you can still see it. So when we go down to the river, we talk about the garden. We look at all the trees and the species of plants that are around the river and how to grow them, because there's a lot of medicines that are down by the river, and they want to know about that as well. So this was a chance for me to get the youth outside of the garden and actually see the natural beauty that we had in the lower Don River and around Evergreen Brickworks. And surprisingly, a lot of these youth have never been around there. So when we go for hikes every single morning, they came with me, they would lose their minds like, wow, this is so beautiful. I can't believe this is in Toronto. I'm like, yes, this is Toronto. This is in the middle of Toronto. You should utilize this. Utilize this as much as your advantage, because some days when it's too cold, you don't want to be down there. So now, how do I do it? This is how I do it. So when the youth come down, I make sure I engage the teachers or the teacher assistants as well. You see 2 teachers assistants right here. What they're doing is cleaning out the containers. We're about to build some more gardening containers. And that space right there is the space of the area that you saw at the beginning of the PowerPoint that had the trellises and the teepee behind it. When we were doing this, like this garden, this space, I had a lot of input from the youth, a lot of input from Indigenous youth on what we should have there. If you would have saw it before, like right here, you saw a lot of leftover trees, a lot of switchgrass, a lot of leftover raspberry bushes. We end up taking that space and making it into a beautiful place for people to come and sit and enjoy, and where you will actually learn how to do Indigenous agriculture and European agriculture. What I want to do this year is incorporate more agriculture from around the world, so I get a well mix of people coming down and actually enjoying the site, and not just having just a select few people. I want everyone to come down there and just enjoy it, so we can all learn how to take care of gardens together, and we can share the profits and share the harvest together as well. But you need your input from the youth. Why I do it? The reason why I do it is really to help to reconnect the youth to the land and for the traditional knowledge as well, especially when it comes to First Nations youth, who historically their ancestors, their grandparents, maybe their parents have been disconnected from the land. So me being who I am in my background, it is my calling to teach these youth, to teach all the youth about how to care for this earth, how to care for this land. I mean, we only have this land to take care of. And part of my techniques is to show them how to regenerate the soil, how to renew the earth, how to make sure that we, as caretakers, because that's who we are, that we take care of this earth. You find that some of the youth they're against it because they want to do it quick and easy. And I tell them flat out, we can't do quick and easy when it comes to gardening. We can only go as fast as Mother Nature allows us. If you want to do something quick, you can start stuff in the greenhouse, but once you put it in the ground, Mother Nature takes control and the plants will grow as fast or as slow as they need to grow. But it's fun to sit there and listen to the children and the youth and talk about their reconnecting to the land, and then eventually see how they reconnect to it and how to connect with them. Because one of the biggest things I realize is that a lot of people have a hard time connecting with the youth today. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I just try to figure out where they are and I try to meet them where they are at. No sooner, no later. If they are still stuck in looking at using tractors and maybe chemicals, I'll talk about that and then show them the alternative. Now the alternative is actually better for the soil, better for the earth, better for you. Because if you're putting all that stuff inside of your soil and the chemicals, you have to remember that you're eating it as well when you harvest. So after a while, they sort of change their idea. They want to do more natural. And so when I tell them about more natural, you get better things as well. The picture right here you'll see is just a lot of the corn. So reconnecting to the earth, reconnecting to traditional culture means also reconnecting to traditional foods. So our corn, most people look at sweet corn, the yellow corn. They don't look at the multicolored corn, or they look at the multicolored corn for Harvest Day or for Thanksgiving Day, and they put it on their tables or their doors. We eat all this corn. All this corn is edible to us, but there's certain ways we have to eat it. So within my whole traditional teaching and knowledges, we'll go through and I'll show them how to actually prepare this corn properly, how they can actually eat it. And it's really nice to see them when they actually harvest the corn and they see the colors and their minds just get blown, like they can't believe they grew this. So I make sure they are there to help me. So with all the things I do there at Evergreen Brickworks, within the city of Toronto and maybe outside the city of Toronto as well, I always make sure to tell the youth that you must always, always, always give thanks. Give thanks to the earth for growing great crops. Give thanks to your friends, your families that are working there with you, that are helping you. And make sure you always, always give thanks to a farmer if you don't grow your own food. Children, youth need to understand where their food comes from, and they need to understand that it's going to take them to push anything further. What I find with all the youth today is that they want better food. They want to have healthier soil, but they just don't know where to go about to do it. They see all the things that are on YouTube. They try to follow YouTube, but YouTube is it's not really personal. So they want to have more personal, more one-on-one. Then you have the whole COVID thing that happened that pushed people away from it for a while, but at the same time, made a lot of people grow their own food and gardens this year. So the youth are tapping into that. So when I sit down and talk to the youth, and we talked about the future and how I let them know that the future is yours. The future is yours. So you need to start planning today and working today to make the future better, especially the earth, because you're young. A lot of us are older now. We've done our thing. And now it's up for us to basically get out of the way, listen to the youth, and help them as they go on their journey. We cannot stop them. We cannot block them. We should join them, because the youth are very, very, they're on it. There was just a path on last September 25th. There was a climate parade downtown. And one of the things that was in the climate parade was the youth are back. So that means that the youth are paying attention. They're watching us, watching everything we do, and they want change, and they will see change, because it's the youth that are leading all this. All the things are going on right now, because they realize that the future is theirs, and if anything destroys now, they have no future, and they want to see. They want to see the trees. They want their kids to see the trees. They want their grandchildren to see the trees, and to garden as well. So I want to take this time to say thank you, Miigwech, for listening to me, watching my PowerPoint, and hearing all the good things I have to say. And I really, really hope that you get a chance to come to Evergreen Brickworks if you can, if you're in Canada and Toronto. If not, you can go online and check out everything online as well, and get a chance to see what we've done there, what we continue to do. we have a lot of great things coming forward at Evergreen Brickworks that involve a lot of youth-led projects. Because after all, the youth will lead the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. That was terrific. Really appreciate it. So let's move into some questions. First, though, I'm going to answer one for Scott. It was tree climbing. I swear I spent half my time outside in a tree. As a matter of fact, there was a big willow in the back of my yard that was the Starship Enterprise. That's the way I viewed it, and I spent a lot of time in there. I even had my yearbook signed. One of the signatures was "to the best tree climber I know." So that's my answer. I remember spending a lot of time in Southern Ontario in trees. So a couple of questions. First, Scott, would you say that youth today are much more aware of nature and the importance of nature than their parents were?
I definitely would, in an academic way. And I think, as Isaac mentioned, I think there's more and more awareness of connecting that academic knowledge that they receive in school or on YouTube or whatever that might be. And then when they can start to connect the dots, that ownership that comes with discovery. And I think, Isaac, what you described is really magical in that giving the gift of children being able to discover what that is. They take ownership with that. So I think that's the key to connecting that academic knowledge with being able to put that into real world actionable things that they can take on themselves and with their families and communities.
Terrific. For Isaac, what are the typical sizes of the groups that you deal with? Is there an optimal size group?
Well, right now, 10 is the optimal size group. But before COVID, I had groups of about 22 youth. And
Okay.
At first, I was afraid of it.
I'm not sure how long you've been doing this, but is the demand growing for your programs? Yeah.
It is.
I would suspect so. So I'll go back and forth a little bit here. Back to Scott for a second. Green Streets Challenge. I would imagine that the first couple of times you've done those, especially with a location like Yonge and Bloor, that there was a lot of resistance from mayors, council, citizens, businesses. I'm just wondering how you managed to get around that, and I'm wondering if there's ever been a single instance where they didn't really appreciate the fact afterwards that they did.
Well, the Toronto programs run with 2 events, and I can't recall the name. It's something to do with Bloor, and so there's multiple events happening along Bloor Street, and this happened to be one of them. So the groundwork was laid out for an event happening like that. And every community that I'm aware of that's doing this runs the Green Street Challenge in connection with another street closing program. So it's really enhancing that. And if you've got that in your community, it becomes an easy thing to do. When we initiated this in Prince Edward County, we were groundbreaking at that point. And but once you start to see the results, and I think there's enough feedback, positive feedback from communities now, that it becomes a very, very special thing of building community. And I think that's part of the good news thing that brings us back when we get on the other side of COVID. We're going to need these kind of events to rebuild our sense of community again, and do it in a way that connects us with the land.
And kind of a follow-up, have any of the street closures turned permanent?
No, they haven't, but
so good?
I bet in every single one, I know every one of ours, you'll get the feedback saying they should do this all the time. There should be a permanent thing. That I don't think Yonge and Bloor could be a permanent sodded street, but it does show people's appreciation for not only the fact that it's something different and unique, but just being able to have family time focused around being outside that way.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Isaac, do any of the teachers that are part of the programs, like they bring the kids in through maybe their school or whatever, do you know if any of the teachers actually take this back to the school and put it into practice in their own schoolyards?
A few have actually. The only reason why I know is because I actually went to the schools to see. A lot of the teachers, they love the program, they love what I do down there, but it's mostly the students. It's mostly the students who are pressuring the teachers. There's one school, I was at the Spruce Court School, I was at another school, and it was the students that are pressuring the teachers to do something different. And I like it, because we need the students, we need the youth to say, hey, guess what? We need you to do something different for us, instead of doing the old things of putting seeds in a paper towel in a cup on the windowsill. Let's go do things outside in the garden. So when I do that and I come visit, I'm like, yes, let's keep doing this. And I always tell them, every year, push the envelope. Because one year, I decided to push the envelope with the youth. I said, look, we're gonna do something different this year. We're gonna grow rice. And they looked at me and said, what? We can grow rice? I went, I don't know if we can grow rice, but I'm gonna try. Let's see what we can do. We end up growing rice. We end up getting 2 pounds of rice from the rice. That blew their minds. Now they want to do it even more.
Amazing. So that it shows that interest in these things really does come from the ground up. And if we can get more and more youth, I mean, that's the purpose of today's webinar. If we can get more and more youth involved in pushing, it was actually a question that I had for Scott as well. With any of the work that you're doing in the schools, do you see any of that transferring into the cities? Are the teachers, the students becoming involved in, say, design charrettes in the city itself? Like, is it expanding outside the schools?
So moving into community engagement in park planning, that type of thing, Bill?
Yeah.
Haven't seen that. I can't think of a particular incident with that, but we've met some students that during this exercise, there's something wrong in the universe if some of these kids don't become landscape designers. It's just remarkable how engaged they are, and there's been some very special stories. The first one that we did, it was in October, and the teachers came up to us and said, these 3 students, we have not seen them engaged in a classroom like this until this point. And there was a student last year in the one, and he just couldn't wait to be his turn to tell everybody what he had. And he had like about 10 pages of ideas of what he wanted to do. So the teachers kept on saying, okay, give us your one best idea, which turned into about 6 best. But so I went up to him afterwards and I said, those are some really great ideas. And he says, I've always had these ideas going through my mind, but I'd never been able to share them before. So to be able to see a process that engages kids in that kind of a way is very special indeed. And it's the kind of thing that schools I know want to build upon. And those programs at schools need those champions. When everybody goes in the summer and those gardens are still growing, they need some community champions to keep them going. So, hopefully we're developing them as well.
Yeah, so a question maybe to both of you actually, but primarily for Isaac, and I have one more that's come in on the chat window. But I think there's a perception nowadays that kids have no patience, or that youth have no patience. They want the instant gratification and everything. I can't figure out why that is a perception. They're used to playing video games that take months and months and months to get to the end of. But at any rate, do you find there's any resistance in your programs, Isaac, that they have to plant a seed and they have to watch it grow, and is there, or are they excited about that, or is that a challenge, that not having that instant gratification?
They how do I say this? So the youth that I had, the NDG youth, I had them plant sage seeds the first day. The first day they showed up. I said, these sage seeds take about 8 weeks to grow, right? So I need you guys to pay attention to sage seeds. A few of them, I should say, did expect the seeds to be popped within overnight. So next week they came back, they were like, oh, where's the sage? I'm like, no, still underground. then that sparked a conversation within the youth themselves, where they were talking about, this is gardening, this is seeds. Seeds take time. Seeds teach you how to teach you patience. So what I did is I stepped back and said, okay, keep the conversation going. And so they end up teaching each other, the other ones who wanted everything quick satisfaction, to be patient, to take your time and watch the seeds when you come back, because eventually they'll pop up before you even know it. So when they came back the third week, they couldn't believe the size of the plants. They're like, well, didn't we just plant these? I said, yeah, we did. I went, this is gardening always teaches you patience. Always, always, always. I went, sure, you can go to the grocery store and buy your carrots in a bag, but why not grow your carrots from a seed so you can take care of it and nurture it? I think about this as nurturing yourself as well. When being a youth, you must nurture yourself. Sure, you have your parents, but you got to nurture yourself as well. And just like we have to nurture these seeds, right? They're like, okay, I think I get it. I went, don't worry about it. You'll get it later on. But when it comes to instant gratification, I said, I get it. You guys want YouTube, want things like this. But the best things in life take time to grow, especially in your garden. And they get it.
Yeah. Scott, do you find the same thing, that because they're involved from the very beginning, they understand that how long it takes to get through all of the processes to actually have a garden established?
I think if they aren't familiar with it, it's something that is just eye-opening to see that, right? And to see these processes that you really don't see in other places. And these are life lessons that apply in all sorts of different ways. We've, the last several years, we've got our grandsons who are now 10 and 7 living nearby. So we have a vegetable garden in our backyard dedicated to them. They help us grow them from seed. We pick out heirloom vegetables from the garden center. They come and they water them, they weed the area, they harvest it. And I tell you, they're coming tonight and they'll be running into the backyard to see what tomatoes have ripened since the last time. No, we can't possibly eat this many tomatoes. And they've got a couple of big pumpkins growing along the way as well. So they're really anxious to see how much that grows each day. So wonderful lessons and life lessons that I think by connecting youth to the garden and to nature, we see the natural cycles that just take place, and each one is as rewarding as the last one was. So yeah, I think there's wonderful lessons that can apply to all of our lives, all of our walking days.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. From the chat, Isaac, what would you say is the top interest of particularly 16-year-olds? Are they recycling, soil, vegetables? Like, what's the top interest of that demographic?
The top interest for the ones that I've been working with is always learning about seeds and soil, how to take care of the soil to make a garden. And then it always spans after that into all of a sudden, we talk about the garden, the seeds, the soil, then we talk about compost. And they're like, oh, what's compost? Then we start talking about compost, and they're like, oh, that's better. Then we start talk about vermicompost, that's even better. And I'm like, wow, all right. So I will say it's learning the gardens, learning how to properly pick their seeds and how to properly prepare their soil. Once they get that under their belt, sky's the limit for them. More questions, sometimes more questions that I can never answer.
That's a great foundation to start on too, isn't it?
Yes.
So do you have questions for each other or any kind of just concluding comments? We're just about done here.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Isaac for the work that you're doing. Just wonderful. The one question I had really related to the last one, what are the things that kids and youth have questions about? What are the things that they sort of focus on as you're introducing them to these things? Is it the same soil and seeds, or?
They always have for me, it's always, well, how do you take care of your garden? Why does your garden get so big? How do you water your garden? And I'm like, okay, well, I take them through the whole steps, right? And then what I do, I'll teach them, I'll tell them first, and then I'll say, okay, now it's your turn. If they're there with me on the garden, I'll show them what I'm doing, then I'll step back and go, now I want you to do it. Because I want you to have hands-on experience, because I can talk to you as much as I want. It'll get so far in your head, but the minute I let you work with your hands, you are going to remember this. And so we'll go through all the seeds, looking at the seeds and picking proper seeds, looking at the soil, doing a whole soil test with a mason jar, and it just gets their imagination. It gets their curiosity. They want to learn more. They come back the next week and say, yeah, so I bought the potatoes in a store. When's our potatoes at Brickworks going to be ready? I want to taste the difference. I'm like, oh, ready soon. Well, they're already ready. We have our red potatoes already. And I'll tell you this right now, the youth picked all our potatoes this year and made French fries and made their own sauce. And I'll say this, I like hot sauce, but some of that sauce was too hot.
Terrific.
Very good.
Okay.
So my question for you, Scott, one last thing. I just want to say thank you to Scott.
Good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I would love to see Come Alive come down to Evergreen Brickworks.
Let's make that happen and vice versa. Absolutely. We'll follow up with that for sure.
Let's do it.
I'd like to see a Green Street Challenge anywhere in BC, actually. I'm trying to arrange one in my own municipality or my own city of Maple Ridge, but haven't got there yet. I think I was halfway there this year. We talked to Scott at one of the meetings, and then COVID hit, so that kind of derailed everything. So, okay, I want to especially thank you too for participating today. I think the topic was really timely. It was good. The presentations were excellent. So I want to especially thank you. I want to thank all of the speakers and presenters from today for each of the sessions. Particularly want to thank the sponsors as well. So Equinox for this section, and I have a chat session in my window. I guess it was Desert Planters as well. Or Equinox is Desert Planters. So there we go. Thanks to the sponsor. We want to invite all of the participants today to join us in more of our virtual symposium sessions next week on Wednesday, our National Awards and Community Showcase on Thursday, and our final symposium topic for this special edition this year will be the Town Hall session on Friday, October 9th. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. And thanks again to the speakers. We'll see you all again soon. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.